If you've arrived at this moment, stop for just a heartbeat, because this isn't random. Something drew you here. A quiet, almost imperceptible tug beneath the surface of your life, asking you to look closer, listen deeper. For as long as you can remember, there's been a subtle ache inside, a knowing you couldn't quite name. Even in the middle of laughter, success, or routine, a question kept flickering like a candle in the dark. Isn't there more than this? You felt it in the spaces between breaths, while staring at the ceiling before sleep, while watching sunlight spill across a floor, while standing in a crowd and suddenly sensing you were meant to see life from a higher place. That quiet pull is not an illusion. It is a whisper that has been following you since the beginning, waiting for the moment you'd be ready to hear it clearly. You were made for something greater. And that's why you're hearing these words right now. They're not just sentences on a screen or a voice through your speakers. They're a signal, a confirmation of what your heart has suspected all along. You are deeply loved, carefully guided, and chosen for a purpose far more expansive than the picture you see today. Being chosen isn't about being above anyone else, it's about being entrusted. Entrusted with a light that only you can carry, a song only you can sing, a corner of the world only you can heal. That calling isn't a burden, it's a gift written into the blueprint of your very being. But every great calling begins with moments that awaken you, stretch you, and prepare you. They come disguised as restlessness, questions, detours, even heartbreak. They shape you until you're ready to hold the weight of what's been placed inside you. In this video, we'll walk together through 7 powerful signs that reveal this deeper purpose woven through your life. As you hear them, notice the ones that resonate, the ones that make something inside you sit up and take notice. That spark isn't coincidence. It's confirmation that you're standing at the edge of a sacred invitation. So take a slow breath. Let the noise of the day dissolve for a while. Let yourself lean into wonder, into the possibility that everything up until now has been preparing you for what's next. Welcome to this moment, to a story that's already written across your heart. And now, let's begin with the very first sign, the one that arrives softly but can shift the entire landscape of your life, the awakening. Sign 1. The awakening. Every story that matters begins with a stirring, a single breath that makes the ordinary world suddenly feel too small. For some, that moment roars in like thunder, impossible to ignore. For others, it slips in quietly, a soft shimmer at the edges of an otherwise normal day. However it arrives, one thing is certain: once you notice it, you can never fully go back to sleep. The awakening often begins as a whisper, a subtle restlessness. You catch yourself staring out of windows longer than usual, feeling the weight of routines you once accepted without question. The life you've been living, your job, your schedule, the roles you play, suddenly feels a size too tight, like shoes you've outgrown but kept wearing out of habit. Something inside you is stretching, reaching for space. Sometimes the call comes in a single, electrifying moment. A line from a book that feels written just for you. A conversation that leaves an echo you can't silence. A walk at dusk where the sky seems to open and say, "Pay attention, this matters." Other times, it's a slow, steady unfolding, like the first hint of spring pressing through frozen ground, patient and unstoppable. And here's what makes the awakening both beautiful and terrifying. It shakes the foundations you've built your identity on. It rearranges your priorities, loosens your grip on what no longer serves you, and invites you to release the smaller version of yourself so the truer one can step forward. It can feel like standing in a doorway, half in shadow, half in light. Behind you lies the comfort of the familiar. Ahead, an expanse you can't yet define. Part of you wants to retreat. Another part knows you can't, not anymore. Once the soul hears its name, silence is no longer an option. Think of it as a sacred knock at the door of your heart. You may not recognize the hand that knocks, but you sense, with a clarity beyond words, that opening it will change everything. If you've been sensing this quiet pull, if you've felt the air around you shift as though something unseen is trying to get your attention, honor it. Don't dismiss the tears that rise without warning, or the sudden clarity about what truly matters. Those are not random. They are signals that a chapter is turning, that a larger story is unfolding, and you are being invited to step inside, fully awake. The awakening is not about perfection or sudden answers. It's about awareness, a widening of your vision, a recognition that life is layered with meaning you hadn't dared to imagine. It's a summons to become an active participant in your own story, rather than a bystander drifting through days. So, pause. Let yourself feel the gravity of this moment. Somewhere beyond the noise, beyond the lists and deadlines, there is a voice calling you to rise, to see, to live wide-eyed and unafraid. That is the heartbeat of the awakening, the first sign that you are standing on the threshold of the life you were always meant to claim. Sign 2. The pull of purpose. When the first light of awakening brushes against your soul, it rarely leaves you as it found you. Something begins to gather strength inside, quiet, steady, magnetic. It is as if a hidden river has started to move beneath the surface of your life, drawing you toward a place you've never been, yet somehow always known. The pull of purpose is not a shout. It doesn't arrive with fanfare or flashing signs. More often, it slips in gently, like the tide advancing on a sleeping shore. But once you sense it, you cannot unfeel it. It starts as a low hum, a subtle vibration under your skin, telling you, pay attention, there's meaning here. At first, you notice it in passing. A book finds its way into your hands and one sentence burns itself into your memory. A stranger speaks a single phrase that feels tailor-made for the question you've been too shy to ask. A cause, a story, a need catches in your chest and won't let go. Slowly, the pull grows bolder. You start to look at your days differently. The job, the roles, the mask you've worn begin to feel paper-thin. You see gaps where you once saw walls, possibilities where you used to see limits. Even the pain you've carried begins to look less like an anchor and more like raw material, waiting to be reshaped into something that serves. Sometimes purpose arrives with unmistakable clarity, an invitation you didn't expect, a door swinging open at the very moment you were ready to give up. Other times it unfolds like dawn, slow, golden, inevitable. Either way, it carries the same message. Your life is not an accident. There is something here only you can bring. Here is the paradox. Purpose both comforts and unsettles. It gives your heart a reason to beat louder, yet it also asks you to loosen your grip on the familiar. It calls you to trade safety for meaning, numbness for wonder. And though it rarely explains itself in advance, it rewards every small step of faith with a widening horizon. To follow the pull of purpose is to become an apprentice of attentiveness. It means letting curiosity be your compass, trusting that each nudge, however quiet, is part of a larger choreography. The more you honor those signals, the more the world seems to respond. Resources line up, teachers appear, coincidences become too precise to dismiss, and you begin to see yourself differently, not as someone wandering without aim, but as a participant in a story much larger than your fears. Even the scars you once hid begin to shine as proof that you survived, that you carry wisdom no one else can offer. Purpose is never about perfection. It does not demand credentials or a flawless record. It asks for willingness, for the courage to keep showing up even when the road bends out of sight. It invites you to believe that your life, with all its twists and detours, can become a lantern for others, a living testament of resilience and hope. So if lately you've felt that quiet magnet tugging at the edges of your heart, honor it. Don't explain it away. That is sign 2, the invitation to rise above survival, to step into a life designed with intention, a life where every breath is laced with significance. Let the pull of purpose guide your next step, then the next. Trust that each small yes is shaping a future richer, freer, and more alive than anything you've dared to imagine. Sign 3. Courage in the unknown. There is a sacred point in every great calling where the road stops being familiar. The lights of what you know begin to fade, and ahead lies a stretch of land you've never walked before. Wild, uncharted, full of questions. If you've reached this place, don't mistake it for abandonment. It's a holy invitation. After your awakening and the gentle pull of purpose comes this, the call to trust what you cannot yet see. Courage in the unknown isn't about the absence of trembling. It's the audacity to move forward while your heart still beats fast, because something inside you knows the one who whispered your name will not leave you stranded. Think of Abraham, standing beneath a star-strewn sky, asked to leave his country and his father's house to walk toward a promise he could not yet touch. Think of Peter, heart racing as he climbed out of the boat, stepping onto waves at the sound of Jesus' voice. Neither had a map. What they had was confidence in the one who called them. That same thread runs through your story. That urge to take a step before all the pieces line up. That is not recklessness or random ambition. It's the signature of heaven on your heart. God does not place that kind of courage in just anyone. He plants it in those He loves, in the ones He has chosen to partner with Him in shaping the world. When you feel a persistent nudge to attempt something bigger than your resume, when an idea won't stop burning in your chest even though you can't explain how it will work, that is a divine breadcrumb leading you deeper into the life you were born to live. Courage in the unknown trains you to lean on presence, not predictability. Each small yes builds a bridge over waters that once looked impossible. As you walk, strength you didn't know you carried begins to surface. Creativity you never studied flows out of nowhere. Even the obstacles become teachers, shaping a boldness that ordinary comfort could never give. So if you're standing right now at the edge of a decision, a move, a dream, a ministry, a conversation you're scared to start, see it clearly. This is not random pressure. It's a signal that heaven believes you're ready. You are God's favorite chosen one, and He trusts you enough to place treasures on the other side of your obedience. Take a slow breath. Picture His hand stretching out towards you in the mist. Hear His voice echo the same words spoken across centuries to brave hearts before yours. Do not be afraid. I am with you. Then take that step. The ground may not look solid until your foot meets it, but it will hold, because He upholds it for you. This is sign 3, the mark of a life set apart, a soul loved enough to be led into places where faith becomes sight. Sign 4, divine alignments. There comes a season, once you've tasted awakening and taken your first trembling steps of courage, when something almost magical begins to unfold around you. It doesn't shout for attention. It whispers. It moves quietly, like the tide reshaping the shore in the stillness of dawn. At first, you might brush it off as luck, a conversation that arrives at the very moment your heart is searching for direction, a phone call that lands seconds after you've prayed for clarity, an opportunity that appears as though the universe itself has shifted just to make room for you. But as the pattern repeats, you begin to sense a deeper intelligence at work, a hand weaving threads you could never hold all at once. These are divine alignments, the signature of a God who not only knows your name, but delights in scripting details so precise they leave you in quiet awe. When you are one of His favorites, someone marked by love, chosen for a purpose, you don't have to chase destiny with frantic hands. Instead, you start to notice how destiny is already leaning toward you. People who speak life into your vision suddenly cross your path. Mentors you hadn't even thought to seek out become guides at the perfect time. Closed doors, which once felt cruel, are revealed as gentle redirections, keeping you safe from paths too small for the greatness inside you. Look closely at the story you've lived so far. The interview you didn't pass that freed you to discover a talent waiting beneath the surface. The delay that once made you anxious but positioned you to meet the right person at the right hour. The loss that carved out an empty space, only for new strength, deeper friendships, or unexpected joy to grow there. All of these moments are threads in a masterpiece you cannot yet see in full, and each one hums with the same truth. You are not drifting, you are being guided. Divine alignments invite you to loosen your grip on control and trade striving for trust. They ask you to believe that the same creator who sketched mountains and spun galaxies is also arranging meetings, resources, and timing on your behalf. You don't need to scheme your way into favor. Favor has already found you, because the one who chose you is invested in the story he's writing through your life. So the next time something falls into place with an elegance you couldn't have planned, when encouragement shows up at the last possible moment, when an unforeseen opening feels custom-built for you, stop and pay attention. These aren't accidents. They're love letters, hidden in plain sight, from a father who takes joy in guiding his chosen ones into the fullness of their calling. This is sign 4, proof that your steps are not random. They're part of a carefully orchestrated rhythm. A symphony of moments designed to remind you that you are loved, chosen, and moving in sync with heaven's heartbeat. As you begin to notice how heaven arranges moments and connections around you, there's another layer of this calling that few talk about openly. Alignment is thrilling, but it's only half the story. The other half is quieter, heavier, and often misunderstood. Because when God sets his affection on someone, he doesn't just crown them with blessings, he shapes them through seasons that feel like fire. And that leads us to the 5th sign. Sign 5, refinement through trials. Every great calling is born twice, once as a promise and again as a person who has been forged to carry it. There comes a moment in the life of every chosen one when the journey stops looking like a straight road and starts to resemble a winding path through uncharted mountains. The scenery shifts, the air grows thinner, and suddenly the glow of favor is joined by the heat of testing. It's tempting, in those moments, to assume you've taken a wrong turn, but the opposite is often true. The furnace isn't a detour, it's the workshop where heaven hones the soul. Look at Joseph, a teenager with a dream wrapped in brilliant colors. One day he wore a coat of many hues, the next he was stripped of it, thrown into a pit, sold like cargo. From there, a trail of injustice, slavery, false accusation, years in a cell with only memories of freedom. To anyone watching, it seemed as if the dream had been crushed. Yet in the secret places, in Potiphar's house, in the silence of prison nights, God was teaching Joseph how to lead, how to speak with wisdom, how to trust when nothing made sense. By the time Pharaoh's summons came, Joseph's character had been tempered like steel. He wasn't just a dreamer anymore, he was a deliverer. That is what refinement does. It strips away the brittle layers of pride and fear until what remains is pure, resilient, radiant. When storms come, you learn to anchor deeper. When delays stretch on, you discover the strength of quiet perseverance. When disappointment knocks the wind from your lungs, you find a joy not rooted in outcomes, but in presence. The trials that press against you are not signs that you've been forgotten. They are proof that you are trusted with weight. Gold is never placed in the fire to be destroyed. It's placed there to reveal its brilliance. So it is with you. Every pressure, every heartbreak, every stretching moment is chiseling away what doesn't belong and unveiling the masterpiece God saw when He called you His own. If you are standing in a season where doors seem locked or progress feels painfully slow, take heart. You are not standing still. You are standing in the sacred workshop of heaven. You are clay in the hands of a careful potter, a diamond being cut to catch the light, a seed breaking open underground so new life can break through the soil. And here's the beauty of the refining fire. It doesn't just make you stronger, it makes you softer in all the right ways. The very seasons that taught you endurance also enlarge your heart for others. When you've walked through valleys with God at your side, you come out carrying something far richer than resilience. You carry compassion. That brings us to the sixth sign. Sign 6. Overflowing compassion. One of the most unmistakable marks of a life favored by God is compassion that refuses to stay contained. It's not the shallow politeness of someone trying to impress, nor the charity that waits for applause. It is a quiet, steady river that spills from within, carrying warmth into places the world has forgotten. When you've walked through valleys, you don't emerge untouched, you emerge attuned. You begin to recognize loneliness behind a smile, weariness in an otherwise casual tone, hunger for hope in the smallest gestures. You remember what it felt like to ache for reassurance, to be held up by a single kind glance when your own strength was gone. Those moments etch empathy into your soul. They create a spaciousness that can cradle another's pain without flinching. Chosen ones see people through a different lens. They notice the cashier whose eyes flicker with sadness, the neighbor standing a little too long by their mailbox, the friend who laughs a little too loud to hide their trembling heart. Where others see inconvenience, they see holy opportunity. Where others rush by, they slow down, because love has rearranged their instincts. Picture Jesus in the Gospels, stepping off a boat to heal the desperate, feeding thousands from a single boy's lunch, kneeling in the dust with a woman everyone else wanted to stone. He never treated compassion as an accessory to his mission. It was the very air he breathed. And when his spirit rests on someone, that same pulse begins to animate their every step. Overflowing compassion is not about fixing everyone's problems or sacrificing healthy boundaries. It's about carrying a steady tenderness born from being deeply loved yourself. It's about showing up with presence, not performance, with humility, not hidden pride. It allows you to celebrate another's breakthrough without jealousy, and to sit beside someone in grief without racing to erase their pain. It's the quiet strength to simply be there, fully, gently, faithfully. If lately you've found yourself drawn to lift the fallen, to listen longer, to give without the internal math of return, it isn't random. That stirring is heaven's fingerprint on your heart, evidence that the potter has made enough room inside you for more than your own story. You are carrying a fragment of God's own compassion, and the world is aching for that touch. This is sign 6, overflowing compassion, the sacred overflow of a life healed and trusted by God, a life so saturated in His kindness that it becomes impossible to keep that kindness contained. When compassion runs over, you're no longer merely surviving. You're partnering with heaven to breathe hope into dry places and dignity into forgotten corners. And here's the final thing about compassion. When it begins to overflow, it naturally points you towards something bigger than yourself. Love doesn't stop with comfort, it longs to build, to leave a mark that keeps shining long after you're gone. That desire is not pride. It's the signature of heaven calling you to think beyond today. Which leads us to the seventh and final sign. Sign 7. Legacy Mindset. There comes a moment on the journey of every chosen soul when the horizon widens. You begin to see your life not as a string of isolated days, but as a story being written across the canvas of time. Each choice becomes a brushstroke, each act of kindness a seed buried in the soil of history. And somewhere deep in your spirit you sense it. What I build with these hands, the love I carry in this heart, the courage I release with my words, all of it has the power to echo far beyond my years. This is the legacy mindset, the quiet awareness that you were placed here to create ripples that will move long after you're gone. Look at Esther. an orphan girl who became queen, not for comfort, but to stand between her people and destruction. Her bravery turned a royal title into a rescue mission. Or Paul, penning letters from a prison cell, unaware that centuries later they would still be read under lamps and over kitchen tables, breathing hope into weary hearts. They weren't chasing trophies, they were surrendering to a purpose larger than themselves, and heaven turned their obedience into history. When the legacy mindset awakens inside you, you stop living only for the next weekend or the next promotion. You start asking, what will remain because I was here? Who will rise because I chose faith over fear? Whose story will find courage because I dared to live mine fully? Suddenly, your words carry weight. Your time feels holy. Even the smallest gesture, a note written, a child encouraged, a quiet act of generosity becomes a seed pregnant with future harvest. Legacy doesn't require perfection, it requires presence. It's the daily decision to show up with integrity, to keep building even when applause is absent, to create beauty where others see nothing but rubble. It's choosing to forgive so a chain of bitterness ends with you. It's teaching, mentoring, lifting, planting, knowing you may never see the full bloom, but believing it will come. And here is the wonder. When God calls someone His own, He invites them into a story that outlives their breath. Your obedience becomes a lighthouse for someone yet unborn. Your faith becomes a bridge over waters they have yet to cross. Even your scars become signposts, whispering to others in their own valleys, there's still a way forward. So if you felt a stirring lately, a pull to write, to serve, to build, to heal, to speak, don't ignore it. It's not just a random ambition, it's heaven entrusting you with influence, asking you to leave fingerprints of light on a world hungry for hope. This is sign 7, Legacy Mindset, the final seal that you are more than a name on a calendar. You are a carrier of stories, of courage, of love meant to ripple through generations. Stand tall, chosen one. Lift your eyes. Your life is a sentence in a much larger poem, and the author intends for your line to shine. These 7 signs you've just explored are not scattered hints or random sparks. They're a living roadmap, tracing the shape of who you're becoming. If, as you listened, something inside you nodded in quiet agreement, if you caught yourself whispering, "That's me," don't dismiss it. That recognition is heaven's way of confirming that you are seen, known, and called for a life that carries weight and beauty. Now is not the time to shrink back into old patterns or play small with the gift inside you. Guard your heart from voices that tell you you're not enough. Protect the sacred ground of your mind and spirit. Feed what God has planted. Stay rooted in truth. Surround yourself with people who breathe life into your dreams, and keep walking, even when the path is narrow or the progress feels invisible. Remember, growth rarely arrives in thunderclaps. More often it's quiet and steady, like morning light unfolding across a landscape. Some days you won't see how much you've changed until you glance back and realize you're standing miles from where you began. Trust that hidden work. Heaven delights in small beginnings that bloom into something eternal. So keep showing up, stay teachable, stay brave, stay kind. Let your words and actions become an arrow pointing others toward hope. As you lean into your purpose, you'll discover that being chosen isn't about status, it's about stewardship, carrying light into places where shadows once reigned. And through it all, never forget, you are loved beyond measure, guided more carefully than you know, and sent to make a difference only you can make. You are not here by chance. Every step you've taken, every storm you've weathered, every whisper of clarity that refused to let you give up, all of it has been shaping you for the life you were created to live. If these words stirred something inside you, don't let that spark fade. Write it down in the comments. I receive my purpose. That simple declaration isn't just for me to read, it's a way of sealing in your heart what heaven has already spoken over you. And if you haven't yet, hit subscribe and turn on the bell so we can keep walking this journey together, growing, encouraging, and reminding each other to stay strong, faithful, and full of light. As you step back into your day, carry this truth with you. You are loved beyond measure, guided with care, and chosen for something extraordinary. The best chapters of your story are still ahead, waiting to be written by your courage, your kindness, and the quiet strength rising inside you.